Milo is eating my rug.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
There's a nice, easy little connection there. I'm always happy
I
when I
I was
smooth.
scared. I was like, oh my God, what if she doesn't see it?
How are you? Loaded question.
I'm sorry.
I said loaded question every
Yeah,
time.
yeah. We just finished an action yesterday. We thought it was gonna be like usually we go from three to what, six? And we went no, three to five, and then we like left at 7 o'clock because it was just so good. I'm sorry, the energy was just
That's
amazing.
amazing. Where were you?
So every Wednesday we go downtown to our DA Jackie Lacey's office because we have 608 murders at the hands of law enforcement in Los Angeles. She hasn't prosecuted a single one of those officers. We have like outrageous stories of police killings, right? But she hasn't prosecuted a single officer. She gets so much money from police unions.
Right.
We've been pressuring her. Then we walk down to City Hall um, to get on the mayor about the budget because 54% of our budget goes to law enforcement. So
Right.
a lot.
So you said 608 people
Yeah.
in what time span?
5 years.
Wow. That's is it people in general or just black people? Or do you
Mostly Black and Latinx folks.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
That's an insane number.
Yeah.
So
Like
you're still out there going you're on the ground. Like your boots on the ground still actively fighting for this. And I've seen on your page you're obviously an activist, which is why I wanted you to come on here and talk. But yeah, I mean you are I think we've come to a point where you've either like you either have let it kind of fade in the background a little bit and you're like, okay, it's like, I'll post things on social media, but whatever, or you're like very actively trying to still make the change. Um,
I think it's really interesting because I don't know. I feel like activism looks so different for so many people, right? Like understanding. I used to be someone who was like, if you're not on the ground, then you're not an activist, right? Uh,
yeah,
but now I'm starting to realize activism can look like a lot of different things. Not everyone has the capacity to be on the ground, especially like I don't hold especially black and indigenous and Latinx folks to the same standard as I think I hold everyone else in this work because especially if you've experienced gun violence, if you've experienced police brutality, I don't expect you to go out in the streets and be able to yell at cops and be able to um, hear these other family stories because like a lot of it is triggering, a lot of it is traumatic. Um, but at the same time, we kind of do have to get into that whole performative activism, performative allyship conversation. Because what
right.
what is that? Like what are the ways in which we can participate in this work without being on the ground, but still make like meaningful, heartfelt, genuine change? And I think that's like a tricky conversation for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Well, so what's your opinion on it? Activism can look, and I get it. Yeah, not a lot of people can go boots on the ground, and it's hard because of COVID, and they're
Mm-hmm.
getting worse in LA. Um, and I mean all over our country, um, which is really scary. But it is important to show, in number, mass amount of people who are fighting for these issues. So I guess kind of in your opinion, how would you say to people in the U.S. abroad who are wanting to fight for, what we're fighting for, defund police, justice for the men and women killed? How do you think how can you be an activist from home?
Well, I think it's tricky, right? Because you know, I'm just gonna say it like there has been conversations even about you and like how you've been getting involved. And I know it's probably like very hard for folks. Like, what is the right way, especially for non-Black or non-POC folks? Like, what is the right way to approach these conversations? And it's tough, right? Like, I've been seeing a lot of people, like, I had a problem personally with the Blackout Tuesday because I'm like, what is this accomplishing? Like, are you doing this to raise awareness, or are you doing this because you don't want to mess up your feed by posting donation links? Are you doing this because you don't want to post speeches or you know, like actions that are happening in the coming week, you know? So I think the question really becomes, are you more focused on marketing? Are you more focused on your brand? Or are you genuinely in this work? And like I said, it's probably harder for folks who haven't had that experience, right? Like, if you haven't had to, you know, I'm just gonna say it, I've had domestic violence situations where I've had to call the police on my father for my safety. But there was always like a nagging feeling in me, like, I don't know if the police are gonna shoot me, if the police are gonna shoot my dad, right? My family, like that. These are scary conversations. And so for folks who haven't experienced that, I can only imagine how hard it is to connect to a movement that you feel like isn't about you, you know?
Right.
But I would say at the end of the day, it's really just about humanity. Like, if you care about human beings, then you get into this whole, like, you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to think about your brand. You don't have to think about what you come off as. You don't have to think about your social media, your Instagram, right? Because everything you're doing is genuine. Everything you're doing is just like so raw, so beautiful. I don't know if you know Janaea Future Khan.
Yeah, yeah.
They're amazing. Yes, love them. They were saying that evilness and ugliness and racism requires a suit. It requires all of this like extra performance. It requires racial slurs. It requires violence. It requires putting folks down. But goodness is so easy. It's so fucking easy. Like, if you're gonna be good, that's what activism really is. It's just about goodness. It's about seeing the value in other folks. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's very what's it called? Like, just reactionary. Like, if something's happening, it's gonna be in the back of your mind. Like, just do it, you know?
Yeah. My first live that I did, unfortunately, I wasn't able to upload it. So it was the only one that kind of got lost in the shuffle, but it was the first one I did with a girl named Kanidra. And she had said, you know, when she saw the footage of George Floyd, she saw him as a human being, not a Black man. And I, yeah, of course, you know, of course. That, and it's, you know, I think some people really do, they can't relate to the situation, or they don't want to involve themselves in the movement because they're looking at it as a Black issue and not something that has anything to do with them. And it's like, well, if you're a human being, then yes, it has something to do with you. Because we as humanity, as a group of people in a society, cannot let this happen.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, you said it, it's a matter of humanity. It would be something that's hard to do. I feel like being racist, being ignorant, it takes effort to do those things. It takes effort to be racist. Well, I don't know, maybe that's not it, but I think you have to consciously make a decision to be racist, whereas you're choosing not to look at other people as human beings. You're looking at them as their skin color. Yeah. And that's like a taught thing. Like, that's a habit that is formed and solidified over time. And it's kind of like, okay, how do you unteach racism people?
No, I hear you. And the thing is, like, everything that you're saying is so important in terms of like racism is taught and prejudice is taught. But I think for a lot of, especially white folks, it feels like instinctive because
Sure.
you're born into a society that teaches you to be racist. Like you're born into a society where you are the elite. And so why would you want to unlearn that shit? If I was white, I'd be like, come on, that sounds fun. White privilege, give me some, you know?
Yeah.
But so it's so ingrained into everything in this world, into the fabric of our society,
Mm-hmm.
that it feels like it's just a part of everything. It doesn't feel taught. And
Very
so
true.
even the little things that we do, even the little things that show up, like um we were talking about like just the humanity, and I was talking about this with some other allies, like we've been hearing conversations in like descriptive terms about the Black folks who have been killed, and like George Floyd, they're like, we'll look into his past. All of these folks are like, what did they do, blah blah blah. And then we also saw Elijah McClain, and everyone was like, oh, he's such a soft soul, such a beautiful soul. But in thinking about this, I was like, why are we taught that Black people have to be, just super like peaceful, sweet, playing violins? Not every Black person is like that.
Right.
The fact that we choose how much of a human being someone is, and we quantify like who deserves to live and who doesn't based off of like, did you have a criminal record? I personally, I don't care. Like, I don't care if you were in a gang. I don't care if you did whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like if lives are important to you and if you value humanity and the goodness in people, it should not matter if a Black person had a criminal record. It should not matter if a Black person was selling cigarettes or if someone's tail light was out, right? It shouldn't matter if they were playing the violin for cats. As beautiful as that is, it's about every human life being worth something, right?
Yeah.
Even the way we criminalize poverty, the way we criminalize status and like gender and sexuality, like these things are so unimportant. At the end of the day, it's about like you said, humanity. So yeah.
I think it's like people see, when a young person is killed by the police, I feel like more people are able to jump on the bandwagon and demand justice for them rather than when someone like George Floyd is killed, because maybe they might think of it as, oh well, he's probably not, like he probably had it coming for him. It's like,
Right.
no, no,
Exactly.
none of these. Yeah, there's no justifying the police killing someone for absolutely no purpose. And I think I see what you're saying. I would think that people find it easy to disassociate with that situation because, oh, it's an older person. They probably weren't innocent, and it kind of, that's just not true.
Yeah.
But I mean, George Floyd was doing absolutely nothing wrong,
Right.
and was and I think, yeah, it's weird. It's easy for people to sympathize with, like, I feel like it's, you see commercials of the sad dogs that are being abused on TV,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, my heart really goes out to them because they're so innocent. But then people don't have the same reaction to human beings being killed in the street.
Yeah.
Like, those people are innocent too. Those people are, I'm not trying to compare human beings to, by
No,
any
of
means,
course.
but you know what I'm saying? There's just like a very kind of twisted mentality when it comes to life, when it comes to
Right.
human life and valuing certain things.
And even innocence, I think, is a really interesting conversation because innocence shouldn't be a death sentence. Like someone seeming less innocent, right? It
Yeah.
should quantify how valuable your life is to society, which is like, even when you hear talks about prison abolition, they're like, well, what about the murderers and the rapists? Or what about so such and such and whoever. Number one, we have murderers and rapists on our police forces. So, and you don't see them being prosecuted or them being put in jail, right? But even like the whole idea of putting folks in cages, number one, like the most, what is it? I think like the majority of folks are in prison for like theft and robbery, like non-violent crimes. But we essentially tell the world that your life isn't worth anything. So we're going to put you in this cage, right? And just continue legalized slavery. We're going to put you away because your life is no longer valuable to society, which is also really interesting because look at the majority of folks who are in prison, people who look like me, Latinx folks, right? And then look at our city budgets. Look at where our money is being put. It's being put into police forces, and it's not being put into the community. It's not being put into community resources. So essentially, what we're saying is that we're going to criminalize you for being poor. We're going to criminalize you for not, because we don't feel like we're going to invest in you. We don't want to invest in your life. We're going to invest instead in slave patrols and police officers to criminalize you and lock you up and tell you that your life isn't valuable. We're going to tell you that your life is valuable by putting you in jail. We're going to tell you that your life isn't valuable by murdering you, right? And so what does that do to us as a society? We start seeing Black people and brown people as less innocent, as violent, as deserving of the consequences that we are seeing in the media, that we're seeing from our police force, that we're seeing in prisons. And then ultimately, like as individuals, we start to see Black people and brown people as less deserving of things. Yeah. So even in schools, when Black girls are being pushed out, suspended at higher rates than anyone else, when we see like little babies, right, saying that they don't see themselves as beautiful, saying that, you know, that they feel ugly, when we start to see conversations about colorism, it's all because we just don't value Black lives, right? And so we're conditioned to see Black people as less innocent. We're conditioned to believe that our first reaction should be when a Black person's killed, well, what did he do? What was the reason, right? It's not, we don't see it as, well, why did you kill this Black man? We see it as the Black man must have done something. Right. And we've been conditioned that way.
That's 100% right, and pretty devastating when you lay it out like that. That is, it's just kind of a society that breeds. It's just has bred racism forever, and hasn't been a moment like, I feel like it hasn't. This moment right now is very impactful in a lot of ways. I feel like it's touching a lot of people and hopefully opening up the eyes of people like me who before this movement genuinely just did not grasp how much racism was a part of everyday life and everyday society, schools, and you know, even like neighborhoods. I was house hunting for a while, and kind of like, you know, you just see it everywhere. You just see racism everywhere, and I think it's easy when you're white not to not see it, to not notice it, because it's not affecting you. But now it's a matter of kind of like lifting up the shades and just being aware and, oh shit, this is what this is. This has been happening under my nose the entire time. I didn't know that it was racism.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really thankful that you brought it up, because I think when you're white, it's probably very hard to figure out what privilege looks like for you, or what racism looks like from that, because all of these systems that are violent for a lot of us will benefit you. So, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but Natalie Portman, she was originally initially against the whole defunding the police conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors, had a conversation with her and was like, "Why are you against this?" And she was just like, I can't support it. Send me some information though, and I'll do my own research." And she got to a place where she was able to say on her social media that police made her feel safe as a white woman. But she grew to a place where she was like, I understand that my safety results in Black people's discomfort, and has everything to do with not Black people's safety, right? It's about what protects you is against everyone else, and it's probably so hard to grasp all these systems that are like built around protecting the elite, like even policing, everyone's talking about how it came from slave catching, but ultimately, like, I think is literally just about protecting the ruling class, like protecting the elite, protecting capitalism, protecting white supremacy. And so how, like, with that, like, in the back of our minds, we really do have to sit back and be like, wow, like, we cannot depend on this model of public safety anymore, because it's not about public safety. It's about
safety.
Yeah, it's like white safety, like white rich people safety. Yep. So yeah, that's really interesting.
I mean, the defund the police, hearing that, I think can be obviously alarming to a lot of people, and they're like, well, why would you take money away from the police? They're just doing their job. Like, what's that going to do? And it's like, you have to look at the bigger picture here, and the fact that police are literally getting more money than the entire community. Like,
yes,
there is an absurd amount of money going to the police all over this country. Like, it's appalling, actually. And I can't even imagine that much money. Like, I really just, like, billions of dollars, I cannot fathom. I'm like, what the hell are you doing with that money?
In Los Angeles, it's $3.1 billion.
What are you doing with it?
Right.
Where is it going? I don't get it. You know, it's like, how do you not maybe take a look around and see the awful homeless epidemic that's happening in West Hollywood? And it's like, how do you...
the highest homeless population in the country, and we're spending $3 billion on our police forces, right? To, like, what? Put people in jail? Kill people?
Because again, I mean, homeless people are considered dangerous as well. And, you know, they can't be saved. They're mentally unwell. They're lost cause.
Investing in housing, and instead of investing in mental health resources, we're just like, let's invest in locking you up and killing you and pushing you out of your communities. Because, like we were saying, kind of tying it all back together, we as a society would rather invest in criminalizing and harming Black folks than investing in our wellness and our humanity. And it's because we've been conditioned, like, you are not valuable to the society. So we're like, let's just fund the police. Like, I'm 16, I'm going to college, but I just remember, like,
you're 16?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you seem so much older. Like, so much more mature. Like, oh my God, I never would have guessed that you were 16.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But, like, coming from high school, just thinking, like, we had a nurse that came every Wednesday. Like, only a Wednesday. If you got hurt any other day, it's just like, fuck it. Like, just, I don't know.
Wow.
Just stay hurt, right? Or we're going to call an ambulance and make your parents pay for it type. But that was what ended up happening. Like, there was a kid who had a seizure, and there was no nurse, and so they had to call the ambulance, and the parents ended up having to pay like thousands of dollars for this ambulance that they called. But I'm like, $3.1 billion is going to our police force, and you're telling us that we can't even have a full-time nurse?
Was Like, was this at a school in LA?
Yeah, it was a public school, Los Angeles. I can't imagine how it is for any other city, but it's just crazy. Like, our schools are being so underfunded. No one's investing in our folks, but we're investing in militarized people coming in and like patrolling our communities.
I know, yeah. I see like a military tank outside of CVS. Like,
Wow.
what do you do? Why? Why are you doing?
Yeah.
You're trying to protect.
What are you protecting?
What are you protecting? I don't.
Dollar bag of chicken.
Pharmacy? Yeah, I'm like, I don't understand because this is where all the white people go. Like, it's.
Which is what I'm saying. Like, all the police do is protect rich white people. Even like yesterday, I was in my community, and my community is being gentrified right now. I live in the Crenshaw district. And there was this like white couple walking in my neighborhood who didn't live there, by the way. And I was walking home from the store, and I was like, hello, because they didn't speak to me. So I was like, hello. And they're like, hi, is this your neighborhood? And I was like, why? They're like, well, you shouldn't be walking in here if you don't live here. But they didn't live there. So I'm like, yes, this is my neighborhood. Do you live here? And then they're like, no, but we're thinking about buying a house. And I was like, don't buy a house here. Don't buy a house here. You don't get to tell me where I get to live. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. The fact that, I don't even know where I was going with this. This was just a ridiculous conversation that I had, but
No, that's just goes to that's what the kind of story you need to tell because
yeah,
there are still people who don't get it. There are still people who don't understand that this is literally something that you face every single day.
right,
And I really appreciate that you're still being so vocal and active about it on your channel. Because it's not something that should just go away. This isn't like something that should just fade into the background.
right,
There's still so much work that needs to be done and so much justice that has not been served by even the smallest percentage of justice has not been served to the innocent people who have been killed in the past,
right.
however, 5 years or hundreds of years. There's a lot of work to do, and I commend you for being so vocal about it and so active about it. Because that's a big responsibility. You're 16. That's a very large weight to bear right now, and it's beautiful that you are doing it. And I know you probably feel like you have to because you're Black. God, sorry, my dog. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Uh, Stop. So this is something that's so real for you. So,
Yeah,
it is, I would hope that the people around you and, white people and that you just feel support and that you feel like you don't have to carry the weight alone anymore. I guess that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like I don't want anyone to feel like you're just calling out into a void. Like I would, I want to amplify your voice, amplify other voices just to let people know your story, be heard so you don't feel so alone and like you're treading water, I guess, without a result because we need to just keep fighting. That was a very weird long rant that I just went on.
no, that really resonated with me. Because I think for a while, especially because the school that I went to, it was not a majority Black school. There was not a very high Black population. A lot of like Blackness was definitely criminalized. And so I felt like, I mean, I live in a Black community, but it just felt like every day I was being shipped into another community that didn't value me. And it felt for a long time that I was calling out into a void and that I was alone. But what I really appreciate about this work is that if you go to protests now, the majority, like half of the people there aren't even Black. Half of the people there are just like, we're here because we're with you, and I will put my own struggle on hold for you. And if that doesn't, feel like support, I don't know what does. It felt amazing. But I think, like you were saying, when does the work end? And I that's a good question, because so many people are just tired. Like, it used to be tens of thousands of people in the streets, and now it's maybe like a couple thousand, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, I think that this work is not over until we transform these systems. People are scared to be abolitionists, but I think especially if you're a young person or just any person, you have to really start engaging in radical visioning and radical imagination, right? Future, like we were talking about before, they say that if someone imagines shackles on black wrists, if someone imagines slavery, colonialism, and white supremacy, we can imagine a better world for ourselves, because we are living in someone's imagination. We're living in a world that someone thought up. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing more than, we can change this instantly. And so if us as a society are not constantly progressing, are not constantly radically envisioning a better future for ourselves, we're not going to get anywhere. So don't be scared to be like, abolish the police, abolish prisons, abolish ICE. We can imagine something better. And it doesn't mean we don't have to have public safety. We definitely need public safety. But we don't need public safety that is about harming certain folks, right? Because like,
only one kind of people, only one
and
person.
only protecting one group of people. Exactly. If we truly care about everyone, we have to do better. So this work is not over until like all these toxic systems crumble. And as they're crumbling, we need to be building something better for everyone.
Yeah, in its place, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're gonna keep talking about it. We just have to keep talking about it. And I, again, am very. I love your voice. Your voice on social media is very. It's very strong. Over the past few days, like looking at all the stories, I'm like, yep, she's still like, you're an activist, and it's so wonderful. And I had no idea how young you are, which is crazy. But I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to come here and just speak your truth. And it's a vulnerable thing to do, and it's weird to talk to a stranger over Instagram Live, but I appreciate you.
Thank you for sharing your platform. Like, this is the work that you need to be doing. I can say there might be a few hiccups along the road, but I think that you're doing what you need to be doing. And yeah, like staying engaged with folks on the ground, I commend you for that. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Stay safe and keep doing what you're doing.
Of course.
Alrighty.
All right.
See ya.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too.